Dear students, we will discuss about congenital anomalies of CVS today. So let us start with a clinical case. Saqib, a 2-year-old child, was brought to the pediatric OPD of GMC Srinagar Associated Hospital with history of recurrent chest infections, failure to thrive, breathlessness. On physical examination, the pediatrician notes it, bilious discoloration around the mouth, mild pedal edema, bilateral capitis on chest auscultation, asystolic murmur, X-ray chest revealed prominent cardiac silhouette. That means there was some uh, cardiomegaly. Echocardiography revealed VSD, ventricular septal defect, and hypertrophied right ventricle. This ventricular septal defect is basically a congenital anomaly where there is defect in the interventricular septum. So this was a child having a blue discoloration around the lips, and this condition, this blue discoloration of the skin, is known as cyanosis, and it occurs because of the decreased oxygen saturation, and it may be due to cardiac causes or pulmonary cause. Now, congenital cardiac defects. These are the defects which are present from birth. There are a number of congenital cardiac defects which occur as isolated defects or as combination of uh, other cardiac defects. Say for example, sometimes there can be only, for example, ventricular septal defect, but this ventricular septal defect can be associated with other cardiac defects as well. Congenital cardiac defects occur alone or are associated with other organ systemic defects. Congenital cardiovascular defects make up the largest category of human birth defects. The incidence of cardiac defects is about 10 times higher in stillbirths. Stillbirth means children who are born dead. 8% of cardiac defects have a genetic cause. 2% have environmental cause. Most defects have multifactorial association. That means environmental as well as genetic association. Chromosomal abnormalities occur for about 33% cardiac defects, and in some chromosomal abnormality like trisomy 18 have 100% chances of cardiac defects. Heart defects are associated with some syndromes like Digeris syndrome, Down syndrome, etc. Most of the cardiac defects occur as a result of some gene mutations like NKX2.5, which is the most gene for heart development. Mutation in TBX5 gene, this is another gene, causes Holt Oram syndrome, which is associated with one of the cardiac defects like that's known as atrial septal defect. Now, let us summarize the cardiovascular development. CVS is the first system to function as early as the middle of the third week of intrauterine life. Primitive uteroplacental circulation is established on the ninth day of post-fertilization period. The cardiac activity can be picked up by an ultrasound in the fourth uh, post week of post-fertilization period. NX2.5 is the master gene for heart development. Mutation in this gene causes many congenital cardiac defects. Now, heart and blood vessels are mesodermal in origin. All the three layers, that endoderm, mesoderm, and the um, um, this outer, that is the visceral pericardium. That means epicardium. The endocardium, mesocardium, and the epicardium. That means the epithelium, the muscle, and the this pericardium, but visceral layer. They all are mesodermal origin, but splachnopluric mesoderm. We know group of cells in the splachnopluric mesoderm cranial to buccopharyngeal membrane is called cardiogenic area. Just before perimsomoid period, these cells transform into cardiac myoblast. We have already discussed it. So here in this diagram, we have this is the cardiogenic area. This is just to revise. Now, endocardial heart tubes are formed in the region of cardiogenic area, which subsequently fuse craniocaudally. So we have two heart tubes first of all. Then, because of the lateral folding of the embryo, these heart tubes unite in this manner. First, then later on a single heart tube is formed. But this heart tube has some divisions from above downwards, like we have the bulbus cordis, which is three parts: the truncus arteriosus, conus cordis, and bulbus cordis proper. Then we have the primitive ventricle, then we have the primitive atrium, then we have the sinus venosus. Now, organization of heart tube into different regions is regulated by a gene that is called as homobox gene. Now, this is the same gene which is responsible for organization of the craniocaudal axis of the embryo. Now, organization of heart tube into right and left chambers occurs in an asymmetric manner. That means there is no symmetry. For example, we can say that the trabeculated part of the two ventricles, the right and the left ventricle, they have different origin. Trabeculated part of the right ventricle develops from the bulbus cordis, while that of the left ventricle, it develops from the primitive ventricle. Similarly, the primitive atrium, where trabeculated parts, the rough parts, develop both from the primitive atrium, but there is asymmetry, or we can say the different origin as far as the smooth part of the two atria is concerned. That we have already discussed. Looping of the heart tube leads to final shape of the heart. So we have this heart tube. It has different regions. We can see that truncus arteriosus, conus cordis, bulbus cordis, primitive ventricle, and primitive atrium and sinus venosus. Then there occurs some bending and this what we can say, there occurs bending and elongation of this heart tube in such a manner that the ventricular areas, they move downwards anteriorly and to the right. The atria, they move upwards left and posteriorly, so that ultimately this stage is reached, we can see. And this process goes on till the final shape of the heart is reached. So we can say that this is the final shape of the heart, where we have the ventricles, they are downwards, below and anteriorly, and the atria, they are up and posteriorly mostly. Now, right and left chambers of the heart, they are separated by septa. So this septal formation occurs in two ways: by formation of the endocardial cushions. So endocardial cushions, they are responsible for formation of different septa, like for example we have the septum intermedium, the septum secundum, or interatrial septum, or the spiral septum. On the other hand, there is another method of the septum formation, that is formation of a muscular ridge. This is the muscular ridge, and that we have discussed how this muscular ridge is formed. Now, septum formation occurs in common atrial canal between ventriculus, AV canal, and conotruncal regions. So we can see that we have these the heart tube after the looping has occurred. So this is the primitive ventricle, bulbus cordis, and the conotruncal area. Now, if we remove this anterior wall, we can see the inside. The conotruncal area appears smooth and leads into the truncus arterius. Conotruncal area, we know it is responsible for formation of the outflow of the ventricle. Then this is the atrioventricular canal. Then we can see that here the chambers develop, these cushions develop in the conotruncal area. They form the spiral septum. Similarly, septum intermedium develops. Later on, we can see the atrial septum develops. First of all, with the septum intermedium, then we have the atrioventricular canal is divided into two, right and left. Then we can see the atrial septum formation, first septum primum, then septum primum. After that, we have the septum secundum. Then we have the we can see that interventricular septum formation like this. Congenital cardiac defects. These are the defects which are present from the time of the birth. Complex sequence of events are involved in the development of cardiovascular system. Disruption of any of these events may lead to defects called as congenital cardiovascular defects. Cardiovascular defects may involve valves that may lead to septal defects or may affect the muscular valves, such as leading to either hypoplastic chambers, or it may involve the valves causing stenosis or atresia, or there may be involvement of the vessels, as a result of which the vessels can arise from areas which are from areas other than their normal origins. So the result of these defects can be blood going in wrong direction or wrong place. There can be blockage to the blood flow, or there can be leaking back of blood in a reverse direction, or there can be issues with heart muscle may affect the pumping ability. Now causes. Problems with genes or chromosomes. Use of alcohol or some drugs like thalidomide by the mother during pregnancy. Maternal diabetes or hypertension are also a cause of congenital cardiac defects in the child. Viral infections like rubella particularly during the first trimester. Presentation of the child will be breathlessness, blue discoloration of the cyno or skin, that is called as cyanosis, swelling in the dependent body areas, or that is known as edema. There is a something that either the congenital cardiac defects can be severe or they can be mild. Most severe cardiac defects can lead to the death of the child, intrauterine death of the child. So the child is born dead. That is called a stillborn. Some cardiac defects are in a milder form, and the presentation can be sometime later, not at the time of the birth. And some are very mild, which are unknown till the adult age. Classification of congenital heart defects. Now, congenital heart diseases can be, first of all, there can be malposition of the heart, like a ectopia cordis or dextrocardia. Now, congenital heart diseases can be acyanotic or there can be cyanotic. That means whether cyanosis is present or not, depending upon the saturation of the oxygen. Now, acyanotic cardiac diseases are different types, like we have the atrial septal defects, or ventricular septal defects, or patent ductus arteriosus, or coarctation of the aorta, or aortic or pulmonary stenosis. In all these conditions, what happens is that the blood flow is in the normal direction. There is no mixing of the blood, that is oxygenated and deoxygenated. So there is normal saturation of the oxygen. But even these defects, now these acyanotic cardiac diseases, this term is now obsolete, because even these acyanotic cardiac diseases, they later turn cyanotic, change because of the reversal of the shunts. That means the flow is reversed. So at that time, the patient will be having cyanosis. Now, cyanotic cardiac diseases, they may occur as a result of mixing of the blood, means the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood will be mixed. So as a result of which there will be decreased oxygen saturation, and patient will have cyanosis, or there can be decreased pulmonary blood flow. So whenever there is decreased pulmonary blood flow, there will be cyanosis. Now, in mixed this blood flow, we have persistent truncus arteriosus. That means the truncus arteriosus is not divided into aorta and pulmonary trunk. So both contain, these trunks will naturally contain both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. A persistent atrioventricular canal, again there will be mixing up oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Transposition of the great vessels, that the aorta will arise from the right ventricle, and the pulmonary artery will arise from the left ventricle. Or there can be another condition that is called Ebstein anomaly that we will discuss later on. Now, because of cause of the decreased pulmonary blood flow, we have tetralogy of Fallot. Total anomalous pulmonary venous connection. These terms will, these defectors will be discussed one by one. Now, cardiac malposition. So here in this condition we have, this is the called as ectopia cordis. The chest wall is not formed properly, not formed at all, so that the heart is only covered by the skin and it is exposed almost to the exterior. This is known as ectopia cordis. Or there can be change in the axis of the heart. Normally we have the apex is tilted towards the left, but when in case of the dextrocardia, the apex is tilted towards the right. This is because of the abnormal looping of the heart, that heart tube. That means this looping will occur in a reverse direction. So there will be change in the position of the heart or axis of the heart, and this may be either isolated or it may occur as in association with other these condition that is called situs inversus. That means the right sided structures are present on the left and vice versa. Now, atrial septal defects. We have different atrial septal defects. We will discuss them one by one. Now, first of all, we have this is called as septum primum initial. This is septum intermedium. Between them we have a foramen that is known as ostium primum, through which initially there is connection between the right and left atria. Later on, this septum fuses with the septum intermedium and this foramen is closed. If this septum fuses to flows, that condition is known as ostium primum defect. So there this will be called as ostium primum defect. Now we have again here in this case we have this the septum secundum. Now the septum primum has fused with the septum intermedium. So there is a foramen between the septum secundum and septum primum. At this stage the septum secundum has not overlapped the septum primum. So this foramen will be called as ostium secundum. Now if this septum secundum fails to grow downwards like this defect will be there. This defect is then called as ostium secundum defect. Again, we see after formation of this septum secundum is complete, there occurs communication between the right and the left atrium during the fetal period. This through this foramen. Now this foramen is called as foramen ovale. So normally this foramen ovale gets closed when the child is born because of high pressure on the left side. So this foramen gets closed and we have the fossa ovalis at that place. Sometimes it remains open and the condition is known as patent foramen ovale. So these four conditions, the ostium secundum defect, the ostium primum defect, the sinus venosus. That means sinus venosus defect is that the sinus venosus, it has the right and the left horns. The sinus venosus is opens into the right atrium. It is guarded by some valves. These valves, if these valves they are defective, there will be then abnormal communication between the right and left sides just at the level of the opening of the superior vena cava, and that defect is known as sinus venosus variety of atrial septal defect. Now coming back to these atrial septal defects. Now here what we see that this is this below one. This is the septum secundum. Now septum secundum that goes downwards and overlaps the septum primum. This is septum primum. Now before that there is a foramen between these two, which is known as foramen secundum or ostium secundum. This is called as. Now this if this septum Now, fails to fuse, fails to grow downwards and overlap this, there will occur a defect in this area. This defect is known as ostium secundum defect. This defect will be called as ostium secundum defect, like this. So this is basically the foramen secundum, and this is closed when this septum grows downwards. The septum secundum goes downwards and overlaps this. So if it fails to grow downwards, this defect will occur, and that defect is known as ostium secundum defect. Now we can see that once this septum secundum grows downwards, overlaps the septum primum, so that there occurs a shunt between the right and left atrium. Blood from the right atrium goes to the left atrium through a foramen which is known as foramen ovale. Now this is the foramen ovale. After birth, because of increased pressure in the left atrium, this closes and it forms the fossa ovalis. But in some cases this foramen remains patent in 20% of the cases. That is known as patent foramen ovale. After some time it closes itself, but in some cases if it is too large, it needs some surgical correction. So let us see ventricular septal defects. Now most common congenital cardiac defects. So ventricular septal defect is most common congenital cardiac defect. It may involve membranous part or the muscular part of the ventricle. So let us see, this is the normal heart. Now here we have this, the interventricular septum. It has most part is muscular, but upper part, this portion is membranous. So if there is a defect in the ventricular septum, it may involve the muscular wall or it may involve the membranous area. So for example, in this diagram we have ventricular septal defect. Here we can see in this area, so this is again shunting will occur from the right to left ventricle. Now the septal defects initially cause left to right shunts because of high pressure in the left atrium. Now if this process continues later, what happens that because of increased the right side of heart will be overloaded because of two things. One, because of the blood, normal blood which it receives from the peripheries through the superior and inferior vena cava, and second, it has extra blood because of the shunting from the right to left to right side. So more blood will flow into the lungs. There will occur in congestion of the lungs. So the pulmonary pressure will increase. Now once pulmonary pressure increases, the right side of the heart will have to work more, as a result of which it will undergo hypertrophy. The right side will undergo hypertrophy and pressure will increase now on the right side. So a stage is reached that the pressure on the right side of the heart will become more than that of the left side of the heart. So there will occur reversal of the shunt. That means now the shunt will occur from the right to left side. Now right to left side, whenever there is shunting, there will be mixing of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, and this will also now lead to sinus. Earlier initially it was acyanotic because shunting was from left to right side, which left contains oxygenated blood. So there was actually acyanotic, but later on when the reversal of shunt occurs, this will lead to acyanosis, and that condition of reversal of the shunt is known as Eisenberger's syndrome. Now patent ductus arteriosus. So let us see what is this patent ductus arteriosus. Now we can see this is the normal heart. In the normal heart we can see that the left pulmonary artery is attached with the arch of the aorta by means of a ligament like thing here. This ligament arrow, white arrow shows, this is known as ligamentum arteriosum. Now this ligamentum arteriosum basically the obliterated part of the ductus arteriosus. Now if this ductus arteriosus, sometimes it doesn't close after birth. It immediately closes after birth, but in some cases it doesn't close after birth. So that condition is known as patent ductus arteriosus or PDA. Now this PD is an important entity because it when the blood flows through the pulmonary artery, there may occur shunting uh, during fetal life, that these pulmonary blood from the pulmonary arteries go directly into the aorta. But because after birth, when it remains patent, there will be occur shunting from the aorta because of high pressure toward the pulmonary circulation. Again, this will be an cyanotic condition. But later on, when the same thing will happen, when the pressure on the right side increases, there will be reversal of the shunt. So this patent ductus arteriosus results is a result of, because of, we know this patent ductus, this ductus arteriosus forms whenever the sixth RH artery on the left side remains there. On the right side it gets obliterated, but on the left side it remains because blood has to shunt from the left pulmonary artery into the aorta. So this is known as ductus arteriosus initially, but later on, when after birth of child, it closes. So there occurs fibrosis of this duct, which is known as ligamentum arteriosus. But in some cases it remains patent. So once it remains patent, that condition is known as patent ductus arteriosus. Now, cardiac defect is due to defective conotruncal septum development. Now, formation of, first of all, we have the formation of the spiral septum. We see here. Now, this spiral septum is responsible for origin of the pulmonary trunk from the right ventricle and the aorta from the left ventricle. So if there is defect to this septum formation, what will be, this is normal thing. We can see pulmonary trunk arises from the left right atrium, and aorta arises from the left pulmonary trunk arises from the right ventricle, and aorta arises from the left ventricle. Now there can be certain situations where there is defective septum formation. One situation will be when this septum is either incompletely formed or it is not formed at all, this conotruncal septum. There will be a common trunk. That means the trunk's arteries are not divided into pulmonary artery and the aorta. So that is known as persistent trunk. That will be due to failure of the development of the spiral septum. Now, sometimes what happens that the septum formation does not occur in a spiral manner. There occurs a straight septal formation. If there is straight septal formation, there occurs transposition of the great vessels. That means the aorta arises from the this right ventricle, and the pulmonary artery arises from the left ventricle. So this is aorta and this is the pulmonary artery. Now here sometimes what happens, septum formation occurs, but somewhere it is defective, it is incomplete. So there occurs a window between the aorta and the pulmonary trunk communication, that is known as aorticopulmonary window. This is a very rare condition. Now let us see, there is another congenital cardiac defect which is known as tetralogy Fallot TOF, abbreviated as TOF, TOF, TOF. Now what is that? Now it's a most commonly occurring congenital cardiac anomaly. Now it is a type of conotruncal anomaly. It results due to anterior displacement of the conotruncal septum. So because of that, 4 cardiovascular features occur in this tetralogy of Fallot. Tetra means 4. That means 4 cardiovascular features occur. Number 1, there occurs pulmonary stenosis. There is ventricular septal defect. There can be association with an overriding aorta. We will see what is that overriding aorta. Now there can be right ventricular hypertrophy. So this is tetralogy of Fallot. Now here what can see, 4 things we have. One is stenotic pulmonary valve. That means this pulmonary opening is out, this right ventricular outflow is stenosis, narrow. And there is again another thing is ventricular septal defect. There is septum in the defect in the interventricular septum, and because of this there occurs some high pressure in the right ventricle. So due to that this right ventricle thickness there occurs, it is hypertrophy. At the same time, what we will see, this arrow, there is overriding of aorta. If we can see this aorta, it is just above the ventricular septal defect. That means it occurs, the blood from both the ventricles, say the right as well as the left ventricle, flows to the aorta. So there occurs mixing of the blood. So it will lead to cyanosis later on. Now congenital valvular defectus. So one is the, just like the cardiac defectus involve the walls of the heart, the the septa. Similarly, valves are also involved. So for example, we can see here we have the normal valves. See, this is the tricuspid valve. Here we have the mitral valve. Here we have the semilunar valves. Now we can see here we have pulmonary stenosis. This is one condition. Here narrowing of the pulmonary valve. So there will be, if there is, sometimes there can occur complete blockage of the pulmonary this outflow of the right ventricle. So nature comes into rescue. So in order to compensate that, so blood has to go somewhere. There occurs at the same time ventricular septal defect. So from right, this blood will flow to the left, just like this. So another valvular defect is tricuspid atresia. So we can see that the tricuspid valve, this opening is completely absent. Again, the blood has to go through somewhere area. At that time this blood can go here, it may be associated with the atrial septal defect, because the blood from the right atrium has to go somewhere. So instead of going now to the right ventricle, it will go to the left atrium by means of atrial septal defect. So another condition is called as Ebstein anomaly. Now Ebstein anomaly is a condition where we have atrial septal defect. So why there is atrial septal defect? We can see that the tricuspid valve is not functioning properly because of its displacement. It is displaced downwards toward the apex of the heart, So there may occur leaking of the blood. So it is a condition, it is a defect where there is leaking back of the blood from the ventricle to the atrium. So this condition is known as Ebstein anomaly. Now, because we have some congenital vascular anomalies as well. One condition is known as coarctation of aorta. Now coarctation of aorta, this is narrowing of the aorta. Now this narrowing of the aorta can occur at two places. Either it can occur just before the origin of the ductus arteriosus. So that will be called as preductal this coarctation of aorta, or sometimes it may occur just distal to the ductus arteriosus. So that will be called as postductal coarctation of aorta. Now because of the coarctation of the aorta, the blood flow to the lower extremities will be decreased. As a result of which there will be more blood flow to the upper extremities. And if we see examine the patient and we measure the blood pressure in the upper limbs, the patient will be hypertensive. And if the blood pressure is measured in the lower limbs, the patient will be hypotensive there because of decreased blood flow to the lower limbs because of this narrowing of the aorta over here. Another condition which involves the vessels is total anomalous venous connection, pulmonary venous connection. So normally pulmonary veins, they open into the left atrium. Now here in this condition they do not open into the left atrium. First of all, they join together to form a common pulmonary vein. So that common pulmonary vein, instead of opening into the left atrium, opens into the right this atrium. So this condition is known as total anomalous pulmonary venous connection. Now, there can be some aberrant origin of some vessels. Aberrant means that is sort of a deviation from its normal origin. We know that the subclavian artery normally it arises from the brachiocephalic trunk, but in this condition it may arise from the arch of aorta just beyond the left subclavian artery. Now it has to pass to the right side. In that case, it usually passes, if it is a aberrant subclavian artery, it will pass behind the esophagus to come onto the right side. So this condition will, if this artery because of it will press the esophagus, so the patient will present with dysphagia. That means difficulty in swallowing. So that condition is known as dysphagia lusoria. Some congenital anomalies may occur the veins also, the great veins also. We know that the vena cava, either superior or the inferior vena cava, usually develops from the venous systems on the right side. The left system veins mostly they disappear, but sometimes they may remain persistent and join together to form a left-sided vena cava. So that condition is known as double vena cava. So this is all for today. Thanks for watching.